It is Shane's Rape Shack, football in focus for a Thursday. Another busy week, a lot going on, kind of winding down the football season, headed toward the last phase of the football here this week. Got Spencer Turkin with us from 1320 a.m. ESPN Radio. They'll be doing the game on Saturday down in Raleigh. We'll have some other folk down there as well, our guys down in Raleigh on Saturday. Everything's headed towards Saturday. We got one team left, and that one team left may surprise some people if you've been under a rock for the past several weeks, kind of been away from things. When we had to go out of town on a long trip and didn't realize the only team left is Page. You may be surprised in some corners, maybe not, but we were kind of thinking Alfred Andrews got a great chance, Dudley's got a great chance, Northern's been there so many times they got a great chance, and even Southern Guilford had a pretty good chance. But here comes Page, maybe I feel like maybe a year ahead of schedule, but the Pirates are right there in it, and they did the job. They went where they were placed. They went to the East, took care of business in the East, knocked off number one seeds, knocked off unbeaten teams, and they're ready to go.
A year away in some places, at least for some people, but in others, like their offensive line, this was the year. Four seniors across the front. They're 6'3", 278 pounds. They're only 6 pounds less than Mallard Creek's line on average. So they are there in the most important position other than the quarterback, and Will Jones has really established himself as one of the top quarterbacks in the state of North Carolina, at least over the last few weeks, if not really over the course of the season. He's just made some throws that when you go back on Huddle and you watch the film, you're amazed by what he can do, especially when he rolls out, he plants his feet and he throws across the field 30 yards down the field, and you're like, wow, that's an 80-yard throw.
Yeah.
And he does it with such ease. And this team has just been a pleasure to watch the entire year. Andy, I know that you've seen them a bunch of times. We've seen them 7 times this year. And people kept asking, well, why do you keep going to Page? And I said, well, because they're going to compete for a state championship. And people looked at me like I had 10 heads.
Yeah.
So to all you people, I say, I'll see you Saturday.
Well, at least you saw them in that game against East Forsyth.
Yes.
And the way things worked out, since they were sent toward the east, they were able to get away from East Forsyth and away from Mallard Creek until they meet Mallard Creek in the finals. But back to the Will Jones situation, 10 touchdowns rushing. That's what gets the kid's a great passer. He's run the ball in 10 times for scores, 30 touchdowns passing, 10 touchdowns running, 40 touchdowns total. I mean, for a junior, this guy's put up unbelievable numbers. And like you say, he's got some help back there, too. And you think about Javon Leak, the running he's done this year, even as a junior. And you think about Overton on offense, a great job receiving, but he's had a great year on defense, too.
10 interceptions on defense. Will Jones, how about this, Andy? 337 yards rushing for Will Jones, who's 6'4", almost 200 pounds. So that's a big load coming at you. He will go over 3,000 yards passing for the season on Saturday. He's at 29.52 with a 60% completion rate. So he's had himself a pretty good year, and that's with the Dudley game in there that he had a so-so ball game.
How about that crazy Grimsley game? Going back to that,
right?
First
He had a couple of bad first quarters this season.
And people started wondering about that, but I think Page has hit a nice stride in these playoffs.
They hit a nice stride, and they gained confidence. They've beaten 2 undefeated teams in the playoffs, one of which has the #1 defensive lineman in the country, Dexter Lawrence at Wake Forest.
Yeah, big man.
So the offensive line did not give up a sack in that game. Now, Will was hurried 4 times in that one. He got knocked down twice, but they did not give up a sack. And the offensive line has really stood strong. They've allowed for Javon Leak to become a 2,000-yard rusher, and he missed 2 ball games this year with injury. Micah Gafford has been a suitable #2 running back, 414 yards on 58 carries. So both running backs, Andy, averaging over 7 yards per carry.
And the good thing about Page, too, in these playoffs, that game you mentioned with Dexter Lawrence and Wake Forest, several of the games, the other guy on the other team's going to be in the focus of the game. That's a good thing for Page, so go ahead and focus on those. Go ahead and focus on Mallard Creek winning back-to-back state titles. Go ahead and focus on the big Mallard Creek offensive line. Let's go ahead and do our job. And that offensive line at Page just quietly has gone about their business, protecting Jones, taking care of Leak, and opening up things for the receivers to get downfield and hold their blocks. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better season. How about the defense? So you're the Mallard Creek man. You got to be the Mallard Creek man because you were with Mallard Creek last week.
Yes.
East Forsyth. You got to fill us in because I think that's the big question. We know Mallard Creek's got a very good team. They won a state title back-to-back years. They were against Page back in 2011, and they've got a fine program. Marquise Williams says it all. The other players that have come out of that school going to play ECC football. But what makes Mallard Creek so tough? Besides the offensive line, they're big. What is it about this team? You saw them last week. They were down. They battled back. They must have some perseverance to come back and win in overtime.
Well, they've been here before,
Yeah,
so they know
helps.
what it takes. But I'll ask you, Andy, you'll laugh at this. don't call me a Mallard Creek guy, because some guys on Twitter actually accused me of being a Mallard Creek guy.
Wow.
And I was laughing.
When you were calling East Forsyth game?
When I was calling East Forsyth, and you know this, I'm Triad through and through.
Well, you're a Todd Willard man.
Right. I'm at East Forsyth all the time.
That's right,
so
exactly.
it was pretty funny. But this team is very well-rounded. Their soft spot is their secondary, and East Forsyth did take advantage of that a few times. Now, James Smith, their quarterback, is phenomenal. He is that young man that can just make something out of nothing. And the best example I can give is, and Andy, I'm not sure if you saw West Forsyth over the last couple of years.
Haven't seen him, but I've heard a little bit about him, yeah.
Darian Slade, the
Heard the
quarterback,
name, yeah.
wide receiver, running back, who literally does everything for Adrian Snow's ball club. James Smith is a pretty much a Darian Slade type. So for people in the Tri that have seen West Forsyth, I know they came over and they played High Point Central this year. They played East Forsyth a couple of times.
Playoffs,
So,
right.
so some people might have seen them that follow your show on your website. He's very similar to Darian Slade. He can break off a 20-yard run after 6 seconds in the pocket with coverage downfield, preventing him from throwing. He's got 3,174 yards passing compared to 1,123 yards rushing. So James Smith,
sounds like he could have more yards rushing if he wasn't such a good passer. He probably could have ran for more yards.
he could have ran for more yards. But how about this, Andy? 3 1,000-yard rushers on this offense from Mallard Creek. The offensive line,
3 1,000-yard rushers.
3 1,000-yard rushers. Darnell Walker, the backup running back, with 1,351 and 12 touchdowns, 2 fumbles. Chancery Bowman, 1,638 yards, 14 touchdowns, 294 yards receiving, and 2 more touchdowns with 1 fumble on the season. And James Smith, a 72% completion rate, 3,174 yards passing, 32 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 4 fumbles, rushing 1,123 yards and 17 touchdowns. He has 49 total touchdowns.
Now, is he a senior?
He is a senior. He holds offers from Army and Navy. He would be a great triple option quarterback. So that's why both of those schools are really looking at.
And that's why we're playing this game at noon on Saturday, right? So you can see the Army.
So
Navy
you can see
game.
the Army
Exactly.
Navy game and decide which side of the Commander-in-Chief trophy he'd like to go play for. But he's only 5'10", 169, but he's a strong.
Interesting size there, 5'10". And look at how big Will Jones is.
Will Jones is an NFL-sized quarterback already at 6'4", 200 pounds.
Yeah, because Smith sounds more like a DB when you think about the size. Does he play anything on the other side?
He does not.
They don't have very many doing that, do they? Got Smith
They've got a couple guys that are going, especially on the line, that will go both ways. But Josh Brown is the focal point of the defense. The Florida State commit, 121 tackles on the year. He's got 20 tackles for a loss, 12 sacks, and an interception. So this kid lives in the backfield. He's 6'3", 215 pounds of solid rock muscle. And then you also have Thaddeus Moss, who plays both ways.
Yes, he does.
The son of Randy Moss.
Defensive end on defense?
Defensive end, tight end. In my opinion, they actually don't throw to him
They
enough.
don't use him enough.
But at the same time, and you know this from your years of covering high school football, it is difficult to utilize a tight end in high school. It is one of those things.
Especially with the new formations, it's kind of changed
With the
things
way
are done.
football has evolved, especially with these spread offenses, the tight end gets lost in the
The tight end
translation.
used to go out 3 yards and turn around, do a little button hook and catch a pass. They don't do much. Everything's downfield.
That was when Ethan Albright played here at Grimsley.
exactly.
Now it's changed a little bit. The tight
is,
end
yes.
doesn't mean as much. And
Unless he splits out in the formation, and otherwise he's tight end. He's just going to be for a blocking purpose.
or unless you're Rob Gronkowski or Tony Gonzalez, then the tight end doesn't mean anything. And ask Ethan because he had to move to offensive line.
What was the attention like for Moss and Mallard Creek coming when they came over to East Forsyth last week? What was the attention like for that?
It was an interesting week. I don't know if you'd heard, but Glenn is the rival of East Forsyth, and Glenn was allowing Mallard Creek to use their facility for the day as their hub. So they came up and practiced and did their walkthrough at Glenn. They had their pregame meal at Glenn, and it got a little nasty on Twitter between coaches in the conference. And there have been accusations that Glenn actually broke conference bylaws and provided film to Mallard Creek on East Forsyth. So that's a fine.
You kind of doubt that, though, don't you? You would think the coaches would not be crazy enough to do something like that.
Well, the athletic directors are very good friends.
From Mallard Creek.
From Mallard Creek and Glen.
I thought about that. I didn't get a chance to comment about that because there's some comments about our website too. But I'm thinking sometimes these coaches have coached together before in previous locations, and sometimes they're closer to those former coaches than they are the current coaches in their conference.
Right.
And buddies. Yeah.
Now, the only reason why there's some weight to those accusations is other coaches from around the conference made some mention on Twitter that they were not the ones who provided the film and that they could easily go check Huddle and find out. There's no way of blocking it. If it's on Huddle and there was an exchange, it's there. So I'm still waiting to hear back on what the judgment was for that. But it got a little tense, and it was a chippy game. Mallard Creek,
they were down by a couple of touchdowns at one time.
They were down 21-7 at one point.
Yeah.
And the analogy I made on the radio was that they walked in there and thought that they were the Carter Cowboys in Friday Night Lights. Every time there was a whistle, they would throw the forearm. They would throw someone out of bounds. There were, I want to say, about 5 personal foul penalties in the first half alone against Mallard Creek.
You think a team had been that successful over the years would reach the point where it would be more disciplined? I may be wrong, but you think that, but I don't know.
In my opinion, this is actually the least talented team
among the three.
Over at least what I saw, I'd seen on film, I knew that they were a good team. I don't want to make it sound like I don't think Mallard Creek's a good ball club.
Right.
Mallard Creek is an extremely talented team. I mean, Andy, you see my charts right here. I'll even hold on. This is just the offensive chart, folks. It is highlighted everywhere. That means that those are the kids who are going on to play college football.
What, about 12 on that squad? 12 to 18 guys?
About 18 guys.
Yeah, because I heard Page is about, maybe 9
6
or 10.
to 10, yeah.
And then you go with those guys about 12 to 18. A lot of talent on that squad. But you think about that squad, too. They got beat twice during the regular season.
Yes, by a total of 5 points.
Lost that game to Huff in overtime, but they more than redeemed themselves after beating Huff 44-0 in the playoffs.
Now, the word on the street is that Huff had their backup quarterback for the ball game,
and
so that played a role.
Game,
so
Huff is supposed to have both the best cornerback, the best defensive back in the state, Osborne.
Yes,
Marcus Osborne.
And I believe he's getting quartered by Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken.
The thing about it is, if I were talking about that, I'd be saying, well, one thing about it, Mallard Creek is still playing. Osborne and his team, they're off this week. They're taking a week off, but you look at the team still involved in the playoffs, and that's Mallard Creek, and they've got a lot of talent there, too. They also lost outside the state to a team in South Carolina.
Which is a fantastic traditional power program. But how about this, Andy? Since 2009, so 2009 season included, Mallard Creek has never lost more than 2 games in a season.
It's interesting. Since what year again?
So 2009 on.
Yeah.
Mallard Creek has never lost more than 2 games in a season, and 2008 would have been the same thing had they not had the ineligible ball player and had to forfeit 11 games.
And they play a tough schedule, too.
They do.
And the thing about that, I think going back, just a thought entering my mind, makes me think about all this, the tough schedule they play. Page played a very tough schedule this year, too, playing games against teams like a regular 56-50 game.
East
Forsyth, they played at 31-30. I think they may have hurt Dudley, the Panthers. They had that one very tough game against Richmond County. Dudley, and you can't change it because of the way things work in the playoffs, they could have used a couple of tougher playoff games leading up to their last game. Just a little bit tougher competition, you know?
I think that Charlotte Catholic Catholic's a program, and I know that people like to start talking about, oh, well, they can recruit and this and that. Forgetting that, guys, because Charlotte Catholic, besides Elijah Hood, how many elite prospects have actually come through Charlotte Catholic?
Can't name any.
Elijah Hood went there because his father played for Jim Odo. Yeah. So that's why Elijah Hood went there. It's not like he was recruited to go there.
And you've got well-coached players at Charlotte Catholic.
They've been in the same system for 53 years.
240, you've got good size, got good speed, they get around well. It's almost like Freddie Johnson's basketball teams at Greensboro Day School. You look at his outstanding players, and you can list them maybe on half a hand. They just well-coached, and talented.
And they fit into the system.
Yeah, the system
is the wing team.
And the system didn't change much at Catholic. When Otto stepped down, Brodowicz kept about the same system going.
It's the same exact system. And I actually spoke to Coach Brodowicz the other day at the media day, and we were laughing. I said, Coach, you guys have been doing the same thing for 53 years now. And he said, yeah, and I've seen almost all of them. and you know, we had a good laugh about it. And
his son's a talented player, too.
He is. His son's a talented player.
Yeah, they had the kid, too, was interested. Marty Herney's son was in the defensive backfield. His other son, I guess you saw him maybe a couple of years ago. He was a big offensive lineman. They pick up some of the cream of crop around Charlotte, but they've been these elite kids They come from good backgrounds, but they probably play a higher level as far as uniform quality goes as their youth football.
They
as
fit
far
the
as
system.
If you're going to go where you want to in Charlotte and play football, you're probably going to go to Mallard Creek or Butler. You're going to choose those two.
Right, and Butler's another team that runs that wing tee most of the time. But when you're thinking back at the elite ball players, and I'm talking about the 5-star recruits that are on ESPN, Charlotte Catholic is not getting that kind of kid. That's not why Charlotte Catholic has success.
Right.
Charlotte Catholic has success because they have kids who buy into the program and say, we are going to do this, not
And they're willing
me.
to run that old system, too. You got to have kids who want to run that. So many kids, they want to run the spread offenses, get downfield, throw it as far as you can, I'll try to catch it. Those guys, you kind of grind it out. You get a big play here, a big play there, and next thing you know, you're at the 20-yard line and hit it for the end zone.
And that's what's different about Mallard Creek and Charlotte Catholic. Charlotte Catholic runs their system, and you fit into their system or you don't. Mallard Creek, in my opinion, is more of an all-star squad. I don't like calling them a team. I like calling them an all-star squad because you have guys who transferred in just for their senior year to make this happen. This is not like, oh, I played middle school ball here, I'm going to go play here, and then I'm going to continue on and hopefully win a state championship with the kids I've gone to school with since I'm 3 years old.
And it's happened on more than one occasion at Mallard Creek. It happens just about every year. They pick up players like that just that one season.
Yeah, they do, and that's not to say that Page doesn't have one or two of those kids
come around occasionally,
but they came in at the beginning of 9th grade. They transferred in early and came through. So I don't want to make it sound like Page doesn't have
I can
one
say
or
one
two
thing.
of those
Page has
kids.
got a very good feeder system. I've been to a lot of Mendenhall Middle School games the past couple of years.
Yes, they do.
And it's crazy watch those little Mendenhall Middle School Mustangs play football. Those kids are talented, and they've got Acock, I think, feeds them too. But anyway, they've got young players coming through the program and come up through the ranks, and they build up. And this, again, Page has got a great chance to win another title come
Yes, they
Saturday.
do.
But what do you think the major obstacle is about attacking Mallard Creek? How do you attack Mallard Creek?
The defense has to stay in their lanes. That's the biggest thing. The defense has to keep contained. The defense can keep contained and yet still get pressure on James Smith. Mallard Creek's in for a long day. If those defensive ends on the Page
Who
side.
impresses you most? I mean, to me, I felt like that was one of the things about the game that Page has to worry about the most is what their defense is going to do. Their offense, if they've got offense. They've got that covered, you would think. But their defense maybe is what they worry a lot about. Who on that defense has to jump up and be the big man and big men on Saturday?
Well, so Elijah Dirasuba has been a big man all year.
Right.
He actually just got an offer and accepted a gray shirt from Appalachian State. So he'll enroll in January and next January, so January 2017, and then he will accept a football scholarship. So that's how that will work. And App State hit a home run on that one because they are getting a steal with Elijah Dirasuba.
He's
Great
a kid in the developmental stage, still growing, still developing,
still learning the
building.
game.
Exactly.
And Page has a bunch of those.
Yeah,
Funny how that works.
Yeah, that Tisdale kid. I can't remember about Alan Tisdale.
Alan
I never
Tisdale.
heard his name before this season. Heard him quite a bit during the year, but this
Sophomore.
kid is up and coming.
Sophomore, and University of North Carolina is starting to show interest in him. Jeremy Level is going to have a really good game. Appalachian State commitment. Some other big schools are now starting to show
That's what I
interest
heard.
in
Guys
him.
are jumping on board now.
When you're 6'2", 200 pounds and play safety, that
So that's
usually
level
happens.
size, 6'2", 200. He's put a lot of weight over there. That kid back there, he's probably about 160 pounds, 55 pounds.
And DeAndre Overton, a young man who everybody thinks is just a wide receiver, has 10 interceptions on the year.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, if you put him on defense in college, you're not missing much there. I mean, we got height at defensive back. I mean, there's not much you can't cover.
No.
I mean, there's nobody that's going to be a mismatch when they're coming against you and the receivers are coming downfield.
And can you imagine if this Page team still had starting linebacker Alex Gray?
Yeah, he's been injured most of the year,
He's
right?
been hurt since the Reagan game. He hurt his leg, and he's been out.
He's a sophomore too, right?
He's a sophomore as well.
That's the thing about it. They've got these guys in that program at Page right now. People have not heard much about, and these kids are on their way up.
Guys that a lot of people who aren't around this team haven't heard about, but folks like you and me who are at practice and who see these kids on a bi-weekly basis at least. There are a lot of ball players coming through Greensboro right now, whether it's at Page, at Dudley, even at Grimsley, Braylon Faison Walden coming down with an Alabama offer. There's just a whole...
He's got some good reps out there because that kid has not had a chance to play a lot and show what he can do quite yet. But boy, last year it was like Virginia Tech, now it's Alabama. He's got some good reps repping for him out
some
there.
good reps, and he's got some good bloodlines. He's related to Keenan Allen. Allen.
Doesn't hurt.
And
everybody's headed to
right,
Keenan.
hey, it's Greensboro.
I'll tell you what, it's
Look,
crazy.
Keenan is the
Every
Guilford
Harris,
County Schools.
And I say that with no
product.
disrespect, but gosh, man, everybody's connected, man. You know what I mean? It's unreal.
And we always joke that Keenan is a product of Guilford County Schools, not just Northern Guilford. He is a Guilford County Schools product. He was played for a few different schools,
did.
but it really is a lot of good football, a lot of talent around the area, and it's been a lot of fun for me this year. I have fun every year doing this, but it's been a lot of fun for me, especially this year. These are young men that I've now known for almost 4 years, and so I've watched these kids grow up from freshmen to seniors, and most importantly, see them graduate high school, go on to college, and hopefully go be successful men. That's what really has been a big thing for me, is to watch these kids grow up, and it's been special. And I can't thank the coaches and the young men enough for letting me be around their programs and for letting me really become part of their routine, because they have a routine down, and I'm the guy who has to come interrupted to talk to them, and they're doing me a favor.
Right. What would it be like if we would have had a matchup possibly between East Forsyth and Page? How big would that have been? Because you cover both sides of the line out there. Cover Forsyth County huge, Guilford County huge, cover them both. How big would that have been for you?
Well, it was a big enough game when it was a 31-30 matchup in week 6 of the season, and it was number 4 versus number 9 in the AP poll at that point. And I made a joke on my radio show on Saturday morning. I said that if it had been East Forsyth and Page, I was going to start the Change.org petition to move the game to Wake Forest and send the 1A game to Raleigh, because they could have sold out BB&T Field easily.
We had a good chance,
with all of Greensboro and all of Forsyth County wanting to see that game.
Yeah, and all the football fans would love to see that game around there, going toward Boone, going all over the place.
And you know that the Charlotte people would have wanted to come up and see it and just say, well, how did our teams lose?
Yeah,
well,
you always want to go see how your team would have
done, what they think their team would have done.
Yeah, you always want to see, because if you see the team that you lost to, you see them win, you say, we were number 2.
Right.
We're better than that team.
Right. Well, that's the illusion that it gives.
That illusion. You got to have. There's always some kind of theory going around, some conspiracy theory.
But
or something.
I'll tell you what, Andy. That would have been a remarkable game. Yeah. This is going to be an amazing one too.
It's interesting too how the two teams, the direction they took after that loss, 31-30 by Page. A lot of teams probably said, "Gosh, we realized we're not as good as we thought we were." Page didn't let that knock them down much at all. They just kept getting better to a certain level. When they played Dudley, they dropped down a couple of notches and they picked the pace back up after the Dudley game. And when they went to the East, I thought, well, it's great for Page. They've got the East, which is good. Now you don't have an East, you don't have a West. Now you got 2 best right now. There's no more East, there's no more West. It's all the best.
The big thing for Page is they got healthy. This was a ball club that was really banged up when they got to East Forsyth. I mean, that Reagan game took a lot out of them. They lost their starting linebacker. It killed them. But they made it through. They persevered. They got it done. And, they went through the East, and in my opinion, it was a little bit easier of a road for them, at least physically. I still think that there's a lot of talent out there, obviously.
But they had to take care of business. That was the main thing.
They had to take care of business. But most important, and I mentioned the quote-unquote ease, and I'm using the wrong word. I should say less physical football, because they were able to get healthy and not get banged up through this run. Now
it's like going to a football game. I remember going to our Thanksgiving. I said it's a good day when you get to a football game and you don't hit the ground much. You hit the ground, but you stay off the ground. You're hitting hard, and keeping your feet. That's what Page did. They protected themselves.
Too many
pops, me hits the ground, adds to some more injuries.
Think about the road Mallard Creek had to take to get to this point.
Oh yeah.
They had to play
Butler in the second round.
They had to play Huff. They had to play East Forsyth. Those are 3 physical ball games that on the road that they had to play. Page, yes, had to travel, but they got 2 home games, they had 2 road games, and the physical style of football that those Charlotte schools play and that East Forsyth play is not something that Page had to deal with. Page had to deal with some athletic ball clubs.
Right.
And yes, the front for Wake Forest with Dexter Lawrence was physical, but that's physicality in one spot. not the rest of the team.
Yeah, the other side, you go that way some. You stay away from that guy if you need to, or maybe move around him, adjust. And, boy, Coach Gillespie, Coach Weeks, and Coach Jesse Britt, those three key cogs in that coaching staff, Coach Gillespie, the head coach, have done a very good job bringing this team down this road they traveled, headed toward Raleigh, the road to Raleigh, the job they're doing there.
And it's not to take away anything from what Page has done, but it's an advantage. And they're thrilled that they had it, because the bottom line is that they are healthy. And a healthy Page team poses a massive mismatch for
Like you
this
said, get
Mallard
the ball
Creek squad.
downfield against Mallard Creek, attacking that defensive secondary. You said that might be a weakness possibly there.
That is the weakness of this team.
Page has got 4 outstanding receivers. You put those guys up against anybody in the area, and you got an advantage because they have 4, not just one. Overton, they've got 3 others to go with them. They got Polite, they got Ellis, they've got
Faison.
Miles Faison too. They've got all those guys.
4 guys who are over 6 feet tall. Only one of them, Faison, I believe, is significantly less than 200 pounds. Yeah, Ellis is 195. They're listed at 195. Faison's at 165, so he's the tiny guy out of all of them. Everybody else is hovering around 200 pounds.
And he had his biggest week last week since the first game of the season. Big week last week for Faison.
Yeah, and that big week against Davie County. Davie County, a team that made the playoffs and took Scotland County to the brink. So this Page team is a lot better than outsiders think. There are going to be people who watch the film and say, well, they're not that good. Well, they're going to be in for a surprise.
What's the key cog to this Page team? You got 3 key cogs. We look at Jones on offense, Overton, and Leak. What's the key cog among the? We know it's always going to be your quarterback for the most part. But look at those 3 guys. Yeah, who are among those 3 guys? Who's the key cog there?
Oh, it's Will Jones. This team runs through Will Jones, and Will could have a 300-yard, 4-touchdown ball game, and it wouldn't surprise me. But Javon Leak is also finally healthy. He missed 2 games earlier in the year. His ankle was bothering him. He finally just knew he had to deal with it, suck it up, and get it done.
What he did between his sophomore and junior year to really get him on track. He's become probably the number 2 back in the county right now. Maybe
he put on weight and he
number
grew.
1.
He put on weight and he grew. He's one of the most underrated kids in the state of North Carolina right now.
He sure is.
And that will change here this offseason.
May change on Saturday.
Right. Well, that's the thing also. Will Jones.
He can step up and maybe if it calls for him to take control of that game, he may be able to take that game over from his running back spot.
Yeah, and Will Jones is going to be a guy that is going to have a lot of voicemail messages on Saturday afternoon after the ball game because the dead period starts Sunday morning. So coaches can't contact for, I think it's 4 or 5 weeks. They have a dead period. So they're going to be looking at
after that game.
That Saturday night is going to be a very busy night for college coaches because they're going to see this film and they are going to be all over them.
What about Mallard Creek in that East Forsyth game? What allowed them to get back in that game? I mean, they were down.
Experience.
Just the nature of that experience. Did East Forsyth, they had the lead. Did they begin to kind of wilt a little bit under the pressure? You think they're thinking, gosh, here we are, but all of a sudden here comes Mallard Creek back? Because J.P. Mundy was over toward Dudley that night at the Dudley Charlotte Catholic game. He kind of makes a statement. He's very concerned. This game's going overtime. Mallard Creek, he feels like, could maybe overtake East Forsyth with overtime. Do you think that was the case? That experience just led him to take it on the next level?
I think experience. There was also a major turning point in the game on special teams. East Forsyth kicked a punt down the East Forsyth sideline. And Will Smith, the punter, landed it at the 10, and it took an East Forsyth roll. Inside the 5, to the 3,
Sounds
to
like
the
that
2.
kick by Kaiser back in that game you called against East Forsyth that night.
Yes.
I didn't even see it. I could see that ball veering toward the right corner, just get out about the 2 or 3 yard line. Yeah.
It was very similar.
Yeah.
And the only difference was that this didn't roll out of bounds. East Forsyth got a little greedy and tried to let it go to the 1. And instead, someone came and kicked it into the end zone. So instead of 2 minutes to go, buried on the 2, and having to just run a dive play and keep the clock running and stay conservative with your play call and get out of the end zone, Mallard Creek had time to run a 2-minute drill and some room behind them, and they did.
From the 20.
From the 20, and they got into the end zone, and that changed the complexion of the ball game right then and there. It sucked all the energy out of East Forsyth, and I know that they were leading still. It just, the game changed at that moment, and I said it, and some people disagreed with me, but if you look back at the film, that is the moment that changed the ball game, and it came down to special teams, and East Forsyth is a talented ball club. They outcoached Mallard Creek. Their game plan was fantastic, and they had them buried. But in the end,
They could not finish them off.
They could not finish them off, and the talent won out.
What about this Page offensive line? You've seen them quite a few times. If we're watching those guys on film, the Page offensive line, what makes these guys so effective? Is it just a blend of the guys coming off the ball together, the way they interchange with each other? What makes these guys so tough?
There's great communication.
Good.
You have a sophomore in Nick Makovic, who is 6'4", 300
He's got
pounds.
the widest body, and
Yeah.
he's over the ball.
He's a big boy.
He's over the ball, right?
He is over the ball, and he does a really good job of calling out blitzes and running the offensive line. Will Harden also helps him out a lot. And, you got 4 seniors who have played together now for 4 years.
It's interesting, too. Yeah. You get an offensive line of upperclassmen like that together and know each other's moves pretty well. You're not going to have too many offside calls. They're all going to get off the ball at the same time, but they should go off the ball at the same time over the year.
And they've just been phenomenal all year. The only thing that you got to worry about is this Mallard Creek front is very similar to the Dudley front.
Now, is the Mallard Creek front moving around up there, showing some blitz, showing some stunts, showing some movement in those gaps, kind of trying to get guys off guard?
The D-line won't move, but the linebackers will
They're
creep
jumping
up.
up.
They'll creep up, and they'll switch from the A gap to the B gap.
Because sometimes it gets an offensive line, if you're savvy and disciplined, experienced, sometimes you don't even flinch because of it. Some guys, they see those guys jumping around, they start to get a little jump, a little movement there.
Page won't flinch. I just hope that the sophomore can read everything right. And I think he will.
That's the center.
The center. I hope that Makovic reads everything right. I think he will. I think he's a very smart guy, a very smart lineman. And I think that Mallard Creek is in for a surprise. If East Forsyth didn't give him the wake-up call, this Page team's going to ring the bell pretty hard.
It's going to make them move and run. Page is going to make them react, right? Because Page is such a good passing team.
Yes.
Make them run, make them stay active, keep them off guard. I'll tell you that Carolina offense, I don't know how Page is, but the Carolina offense, that game, once the offense gets moving, they lost that game to Clemson. Once the offense gets moving, it's hard to keep up because they're moving so constant. You don't have time to recover, react, and get set up again.
The biggest thing is you're going to be able to send 4 receivers down the field who can catch the ball. You also have a 5th option in Javon Leake. You have a 6th option in
Now, let me
Micah
ask you
Gafford.
this. Let's throw one out there right quick. Javon Leake, is he like a Kano Young? Is he a threat from the backfield on receptions? Not quite as much?
He can take some receptions. Let's look at it. He has 285 yards receiving. He's caught the ball 20 times.
Is he running people over when he runs? in your opinion?
He's a physical runner.
So he doesn't have to worry. He's not going to be the kind of guy that's going to try to jump outside to avoid the hit.
No.
He is going to take the hit.
He'll take the hit, and he'll pop right back up. He's finally healthy enough to do it. It's just an all-around team.
How about this Harrison Kaiser, the kicker?
I'm so glad you mentioned
It
him.
hasn't come down to the kick that much yet, but it could, as it sometimes think it's not going to. Here comes Kaiser. I always call him, I put Kaiser the kicker. Just call him the kicker.
Harrison's a Shrine Bowl selection. He is going to have his choice of where he wants to walk on to try and kick. He's extremely talented. He's a big body, too. He's 6'2", 175 pounds. His punting is the strongest part of his game.
That means that kick can get stronger. If he's 6'2", his frame can get tougher. Yeah?
Mm-hmm. He averages almost 40 yards a punt.
39.5, right?
39.6,
Yeah.
so you're
Right
very
on it.
close.
Yes. Yes.
But he's just a strong kid with a great leg. He puts the ball through the end zone for touchbacks all the time. He's pretty consistent. And Mallard Creek's not used to having field position like that. And Page needs to exploit that. They need to go hard all the time. It's the last game of the season. You have to just keep the motor running the whole time.
You got to
and
get a
it done.
leg up on the opposition. He may be the man to do it for them right there.
Yep.
You would love to see them win the toss, defer, and go ahead and kick off to start the game. That seems where Dudley actually had to receive the ball last Friday. Previous games, they'd always been the team that kicked off. Sometimes those things are kind of crazy as they fall into place.
They
You never
do,
know.
they do, and it would be nice to keep the streak of the last three-peat alive. It was through Guilford County. It was Northern Guilford in the state. It'd be nice to keep that streak alive and keep Guilford County right there.
It's crazy, too, because we've been doing these games for a while now. We're our website and other locales, and I think we've done about 14 games prior to this one. The first 6, we lost every one of them. Like 8 in a row, the teams have won from Guilford County. When the split came, people are going to say what the prior split, after split. But once the split came, they started doing the 4AA and the 4A and 3A, et cetera. It made it a little bit better for teams to get in. But when you're 4AA, you're still the biggest level.
You're still the biggest level. You're still the cream of the crop.
Absolutely.
And when you have as many Division I ball players that are going to play in this game as these two teams have, you can't hide.
Would you like this game to be played later in the day, the marquee game, the matchup late at night, or go ahead and play that first game as it's set up here?
I'll be selfish and say I like the way it is because I have to drive to Greenville and call the A&T game the next day. So I'm thrilled that this game is a 12
You can
o'clock
always
game.
just move from Raleigh and go stay overnight.
I'm going to stay overnight in Greenville, and
so
so I'm going to be selfish and say I like this. You know, would it have been cool if this was the Friday night game and the only game?
Yeah,
that would have been
that's
fantastic.
pretty neat, yeah.
But Saturday, 12 o'clock, it's going to draw people in, and I know why it works out for the association. It's going to draw people in with their ticket to stay and watch the rest of the games that day. And the bottom line is, Andy, it's going to be 71 degrees.
Can't beat the weather, yeah.
I mean, when we kick off, it's going to be 71 degrees
Which
on
would you rather
a Saturday in
have?
December.
Have that Dudley, Scotland County weather a couple years back? That had to be the worst of all time.
You remember when my sideline reporter came back up and there
yeah.
was water in the microphone and we had to
Yeah.
let it dry out before we could put it back in the bag?
They turned it upside down to get him to drain.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I would much rather this situation. We're going to see what these two teams are really all about. The turf, the grass surface over at North Carolina State is going to be flawless. It's just going to be the perfect situation to see who really is the best team in the state of North Carolina.
To make the people happy as you walk out of here tonight and get your meal, Rusty Lees takes your seat, make the people happy. What's your prediction?
You know, I'm calling the game, so I don't like to make a prediction on games that I call. I will say this. If Will Jones and the Page offense can come out right away and not hit a wall like they did against Reagan and East Forsyth to start a game, Page is going to have a very good day.
Got to get off to a good start.
Got to get off to a good start.
I'll
It
use
is
a word I don't
crucial.
use very often because it's such a big word and it's so technical, imperative that they get off to a good start.
That's a good SAT word right there for some of these guys. But yes, you are correct. It is imperative. And really, if they've done a nice job of it so far in these playoffs, so I have very little doubt that they won't be able to get that done. You got to see that. If they get a great start to this ball game, they will be in the
In
driver's seat.
some ways, you'd rather be on defense to start the game. It makes it a little bit easier to adjust, I think.
Makes it a little
can
easier
happen
to
that way.
adjust, and you know, a guy like Tyler DeBerry and
If you stop those
Elijah-
guys in their first possession, it really gives you
That's
a
what
good
East
spark.
Forsyth was able to do. East Forsyth was able to shut them down and force a 3 and out on the first possession, and it really got them all jacked up.
Think about getting jacked up. It's time to bid you farewell.
Andy, always a pleasure.
You're always
see you
welcome
Saturday.
here. Have to get you to talk some A&T basketball one
Of
time. during
course,
the
you
season.
let me
Yeah.
know, and my boys are.
How do we
on a
find you
40
on that broadcast too? How do we find the broadcast?
It'll be on 1320.
Okay, A&T's gonna be on 1320.
A&T's on
okay.
1320.
Good enough.
So you'll be able to find me there. And I always tweet out the link
Yeah,
to
yeah.
listen online, and I'll let you know what station. Sometimes with conflicts with UNCG, they'll be on 1230 and
Gotcha.
104.9 FM. But most of the time they're on 1320.
Good to know where they'll be.
And
Yeah.
you can follow it at Turkin35. I'll let you know when the game is starting and give you the link and everything like that. And 4 in a row for my boys. So
That's good too.
they're rolling.
One of our guys, two of the guys we kind of grew up with, Sam Hunt. Sam can shoot those free throws.
Sam's a great kid, and love covering him. Just a fantastic ball player. Fantastic.
Great job,
Andy,
Spencer.
always a pleasure. We'll see you Saturday.
See you
up in the booth.
Saturday. Keep the seats warm.
Yes, sir.
Rusty Lee's going to join us next, the man in charge of the Page Pirates Athletic Department. Mr. Lee coming in to Shane's Rib Shack, Football in Focus. It's all about